Don't look now, but the lightweight sport bike class is one of the hottest growing segments in motorcycling today. Started off years ago with the Kawasaki Ninja 250, Honda CBR 250, both grew to 300s, and then everyone came in the playing field. KTM with the RC390, Yamaha R3, so on and so forth. And someone has to test these bikes, so here we are at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. This is Motorcycle.com's 2018 lightweight sport bike shootout. We got the 2018 KTM RC390, Honda CBR 500R, and then Kawasaki's Ninja 400. We brought the usual clowns along to ride these bikes. Let's go rip. You might be wondering, so where's the Yamaha R3? Clearly, as you can see, it's not included in this test, and there's a few reasons for that. The first reason is the last time we tested these lightweight sport bikes, circa 2015, the Yamaha barely lost out to the Kawasaki Ninja 300, and now the Ninja's grown to a 400. Also, back in 2015, the R3 made 35 horsepower. Now, the smallest one of these bikes makes 42 horse. And so it's just going to get outclassed, outpowered, and it wasn't a fair fight. And to further prove that, during our track day here at Laguna Seca, the track day's crew, the people who run the track day organization, they are sponsored by Yamaha, and there were a couple R3s out there running along with us, though not officially, and we were going by them pretty much like they were sitting still. Some of their control riders were telling us that their R3s were no match for our stock Ninja 400, KTM RC390, and CBR 500 Honda. So the data shows the R3 shouldn't belong, and the anecdotal evidence from the riders at our track day also show that the Yamaha, while a fantastic motorcycle in its own right, just was a little bit outclassed for this shootout. Well, gents, it's been quite a day of riding these lightweight sport bikes around. The KTM RC390, Honda CBR 500R, Ninja 400 from Kawasaki. Ladies and gentlemen, in case you didn't notice already, I've got Mr. John Burns over here, and the newly certified scientist, Tom Roderick, over here.
Smart now.
Scientist in what? I've got no idea, but he tells me he's a scientist. Anyway, gentlemen, tell me what you guys think of all three of these bikes. We'll begin with the Burns.
You begin with me?
Yeah.
I think it was a really nice track day. Last time we were here 2 years ago, we had super bikes. Probably RSV4, you actually got bumped off in turn 11.
A little bit.
Those bikes, this track was a lot of work. I could do 3 or 4 laps, I had to quit. But on these bikes, I could do a whole 20-minute session and had a great time. I was kind of prepared to, like, these won't be much fun, they don't have any power, people are gonna blow our doors off all day. But we really had a nice time. We were us three musketeers. And even guys on big, powerful bikes would blow past us on the straights, but we could catch them in the corners lots of times. So
yeah, I mean,
it was really good.
You mentioned the power, which is interesting because the highest rated bike in this test makes 43 horse to the wheel, and then the other two make 42 horse to the wheel. The issue comes though with the bike Tom is on, the CBR 500. 42 horse, but it's 75 pounds heavier than these other two, the KTM and the Kawasaki. And Tom, why don't you tell us how that affected things today?
Are you calling me fat?
Call the bike fat.
Like, oh, okay.
I've called you many things.
But you're like 75 pounds.
I'm still a nice trim 185.
You still got the biceps.
These are the same leathers from a year ago. They still fit nicely.
Well, you're a scientist.
Yeah, that extra weight on this Honda held it back. We got some video to prove that. Troy pulled up alongside me, and
I was riding the Honda.
I was on the Kawasaki, and
you just took off every single time.
Blew your doors off.
Became a small
without even trying.
But if you want an example of the Kawasaki's power to win advantage, look at Tom pull away from me. Nothing I can do.
Yeah. So. And it's not the Honda's only detriment. We kind of were joking around calling this kind of the sport tour of the group, and it's probably the most, comfort-friendly motorcycle of the three here. Whereas like the KTM is pretty kind of racer-esque in its seating position. I think it's got the tallest seat height. It just feels aggressive. The Kawasaki's somewhere in between. The
think the Honda was a really nice bike. The chassis seemed to work pretty well, even though it drags the foot pegs a little bit sooner, but...
God damn. All kinds of hard parts touching down. So they got on the brakes. A good word to describe the Honda is soft.
Pretty makes good mid-range power, but it gets to like 9,500 and it's done.
And then that's where these two, the KTM and the
these two take
Kawasaki,
off.
keep going.
The Ninja revs to 12,000 and it takes off and the Honda gets left behind.
Gonna blow by him. On the outside, no less.
I think you just need to change the rev limiter, that's all. Probably won't blow up.
Probably, who knows? Anyway, this KTM here, the RC390, the 2018 version here has received a few updates since the last time we rode one back in 2015. Bigger brake, a couple of suspension tweaks here and there, different geometry. And I thought, yeah, big deal, it's not gonna be that much of a difference. But actually, I'll eat my words and say that, yeah, the RC390 has really changed since I last rode it. It's got great brakes. It's really light. It's really nimble. It's a light and nimble motorcycle. It really does have that racer position. I mean, if that's your thing, like if track days and racing are what you want to do, like this position is, like that's where you want to be. Good engine. It's got good power, especially down low. It's pretty impressive up top too. That single cylinder, lots of punch coming out of corners, but then it hits a hard rev limiter pretty quickly and there's like no warning, and then you're just revving and then suddenly boom, limiter, and it kind of spooks you at first and you got to shift gears. I know I was behind you, Tom, a couple of times and you were trying to accelerate out of the last turn here and I could see your foot like moving around like you were trying to shift gears, and it must have really bugged you, right? Oh, Tom was in the wrong gear.
Yeah, they could use a quick shifter on it. That'd be awesome. But
well, a quick shifter won't change your lack of knowing when the red line is.
I would have to be doing this. Well, yeah, the gearing is definitely shorter on this guy compared to the other one, so you're kind of like having to go through the gearbox a little bit more. But it does speak to the quality of the engine, because that little single cylinder, it doesn't sound or even feel like it's really, doing much. And that's why you run into the rev limiter so easily. I mean, it just spins up and before you know it, you're there. So actually, I think that speaks pretty highly of the KTM engine.
So the most notable thing about the rear shock on the KTM is that 3 years ago, when we rode that RC390, that shock after, I don't know, 3 laps or so would really pogo, maybe because the fluid got super hot from being so close to the exhaust. It still is now, but it doesn't pogo like it does now after 3 laps, 10 laps. It stays pretty consistent throughout. Other than that, the brakes on the KTM are awesome. Went from a 300mm disc to a 320, and that difference was huge. You can stop a lot better now with the KTM. This chassis really turns and changes directions really well. It's a really fun bike.
Toward the end of the day, I kind of, as I was coming to grips with it a little bit more, I really liked it. It's got, you can see how low the bars are. Compared to the others, it's got more racetrack ergonomics. The others kind of feel like street bikes. When you get on that, you're kind of a little bit more committed, a little bit more over the front end. And I was going faster, trying to keep up with people toward the end of the day, feeling better. I think it's got better suspension. You can feel the contact patches better on that thing. And when you start riding it, the tachometer is that little bar graph, but if your face is right there, it's only 4 inches away, so it's actually pretty easy to see it once you get going good. And I didn't bang into the rev limiter anymore after that, and really just having a good time. I mean, it doesn't have the top end of the Ninja, but it's got the bottom end will walk the Ninja coming out of the corners, which is kind of hit.
Yeah, the KTM definitely has the bottom end. Kawasaki definitely has the mid-range and the top end, and the Honda definitely has the weight.
The Honda definitely has the sport touring.
Well, it was the
segment of
weight,
the
and
market,
plus,
yeah.
John was saying, touching down foot pegs, but I mean, we removed the feelers from the foot pegs, and all we did then is start hitting hard parts down, which, just kind of, stopped, what your corner speed was going to be, or at least limited it.
I hate to bash on the Honda some more, but the KTM and the Kawasaki are $5,400. There's a cheaper version, it's $100 less of the Kawasaki for a different color, basically. Honda, meanwhile, it's heavy, doesn't handle as well as the other two, and worst of all, Tom,
It's expensive. It's $1,000 more than these guys.
so gentlemen, at the end of our track day here, I think we have some opinions as to which one we would take for a racetrack machine. John, let's start with you.
On the track, I think I go better on the KTM. But it depends on the racetrack. In a track like Laguna, where there's a lot of tight corners and not that many long straights, I like the KTM.
Tom?
That's a tough call, because I could go probably with either of those bikes. I think if I had to go like right now and spend the money, I'd probably go with the Kawasaki. I think I liked its overall package just a little bit better. The KTM is right there as far as the racetrack is concerned, because it feels like the most track-ready motorcycle. But there is a street contingent to this test. We have to consider that a little bit. I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but I am thinking down that road, and for both instances, I think the Kawasaki would be the bike, because it could do what it does on the track, and I think it's going to be a better street bike than the KTM.
On the street, the Honda's going to do a lot better too.
As for me, I'm with Tom. It's a really neck and neck race between the Kawasaki and the KTM. Both bikes handle well. I think the KTM stops the best in this bunch, but the deciding factor for me is the Kawasaki's engine is just more user friendly. You can rev the crap out of it. I could modify the Kawasaki and make it the bike I want it to be, probably more so than I could with the KTM. And then anyone who's ridden the KTM and knows anything about it is familiar with the reliability issues with the KTM. Head gaskets popping, valves going out of whack all the time.
Now, the hypocrisy here is that we're talking about how fun these little bikes are to ride, but yet we're still picking the fastest bike out of the three.
Shut up, Tom.
Just saying.
Shut
Just
up,
saying.
Tom. No one asked you. Anyway, so because of those things, the hesitancy to really want to own the KTM because of its maintenance issues and reliability issues, and because of the flexibility of the Kawasaki engine, my choice for the racetrack would be the Kawasaki. Of course, as Tom mentioned, there is a street component to this test, so we're not done. We'll see you later. But before we go, I do have to give a huge thanks to Track Days for allowing us to come to this track day, do a lot of cool stuff on the racetrack. They let us have a lot of leniency with what we could and couldn't do. Thank you to Bridgestone for the awesome Battle Axe R11 tires. Super sticky, warmed up really fast. They're a DOT race tire, and yet we didn't use warmers. We just did like a couple laps, got them warmed up, and they ran awesome all day long. It was a fun day. We didn't crash, others did, which is a testament to how good these tires are.
Or how good we are, maybe.
Oh yeah, that too, but yeah.
The tires are better than us.
The tires are better than us, for
Probably
sure.
not.
Anyway, that said, we'll see you on the street ride. And here we are on the street with the Honda CBR 500R, Kawasaki Ninja 400, and KTM RC 390. Well, the racetrack proved that the KTM was definitely the raciest of the bunch. The Honda was the streetiest of the bunch, and the Kawasaki was kind of somewhere in the middle, like a Goldilocks, if you will. Now that we're on the street, I think we've confirmed our suspicions, right, gents? John, I started with you back at the track. I'll start with you again on the street. What did you think of all three on the street ride? Kind of what we expected it to be?
Exactly what you just said. We'll cut to Tom. No. Yeah, I totally agree. The Honda is kind of we laughed about it being a sport tour, but it kind of is a sport tour for the streets, a little heavier. But man, it's really nice. If I was only going to commute around town and travel on pretty straight roads and didn't want to race anybody, didn't care about getting there first, the Honda is a very, very nice, usual great Honda controls and layout and everything, and the nicest finish, the nicest paint finish of any of these three. The KTM, I think on the street, on a tight road like we rode today, is still the sportiest one. It feels lightest on its feet. You know, it's a little sharper than it was before. It's
got an upside down fork. It feels like I can feel what it's doing. Most connected to the street on the little KTM. But I don't think that makes it the best street bike. I think it makes it the worst street bike, probably. Unless you just want to fly up and down curvy roads all day, if that's all you're going to use it for. But the Kawasaki's kind of the best of both of those worlds, huh? It's right in the middle.
Yep. Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, no surprise there. You know, the Honda, I mean, nicest seat. I think nicest seating position for long periods of time. The Kawasaki's close. I think the seat to foot peg ratio is a little, you know, tighter, especially if you're, you know, 6 foot or above. This guy is actually roomy in the seat, but it does have a more forward lean compared to these other guys with their kind of more upright bars. But I do like the big width of the bars on the KTM, on the track or the street. I mean, you can just, you know, and plus being so lightweight, you can just slam this thing back and forth. Lots of fun. So I think it's what's important to you. You know, if you're not going to be doing a ton of commuting, like you said, if you're just going to play and go up and do canyon rides and stuff like this would be awesome. If you're not going to the track, the Honda would be awesome. But if you're going to do a little of both, you know, the Kawasaki really is, I think, the best of both worlds, you know.
But on top of that, the chassis is better than it should be. The bike is so light, and it can carve a canyon road like no one's business. It's remarkably good.
Feels like it's just almost as comfy as the Honda and almost as sporty as the KTM.
Yeah.
Rolled into one nice package.
It's impressive what Kawasaki did with the Ninja 400. That said, yeah, I gotta echo what you guys say. Kind of depends on what you want to do, right? Honda, Kawasaki, KTM, what's your flavor? That decides a lot of it. But what also decides a lot of it too is the price. And we talked about this at the track, Tom. That Honda is the priciest one of the bunch, which
Yeah,
even if you are a street rider, it's kind of hard to suggest that, huh?
I'm definitely a Grinch McDuck when it comes to spending my own money on a motorcycle, and it's going to be hard swallowing $1,000 more for a bike that I, like I said, really like on the street. But man, for $1,000 less, I'd take the little less comfortable Kawasaki probably any day over that. For a lot of guys out there like myself, if you're looking in this range of motorcycles, if you discount the Honda because of its higher price, it leaves you with these two. You know, it's just a matter of you know, do you like this more racier? What we said, John, raw, distilled. The KTM just feels more, say, old school motorcyclish. Kawasaki more refined. So that's going to weigh into your decision-making process also.
Well, really for me, I was thinking about this when I was riding up the KTM. The only thing that would keep me from buying that would be the Duke 390, which is the same engine and everything, and might be a couple dollars less, even more comfortable street bike.
It is weird how the Duke 390 got a bunch of upgrades, and the RC 390 hasn't seen much of those upgrades. So there you get the gist of it. What flavor of ice cream do you like is basically what this boils down to. You can kind of get an idea where our respective thoughts are leaning as to which bike we personally would prefer, but let's not leave any doubt. So, Tom, if you had to pick one of these bikes to do it all, what would you do?
Oh yeah, the Kawasaki.
John?
I'd probably do the Kawasaki.
And that makes it 3 for 3. I would pick the Kawasaki too. Of course, it's more than just us saying it's the Kawasaki. There's a lot more to read up, understand, digest, and chew on. You can find the full review of this entire test on Motorcycle.com. I've got a ton of pictures, graphs, dyno charts, all the good stuff. So to read our complete thoughts, go there, check out the story, and we'll see you next time.